Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais, and my co-host, Andrew Bobo, is on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. Here's your show. I was left unsupervised today, and as I do occasionally, I thought to myself, why not freshen the show up a little bit? So, new intro music, renovated the office, been busy. But in my defense, it's Andrew's fault because, his office looks amazing, so I had to step up a little bit.
It's okay.
No, yours looks amazing. Mine was just, But, took 2 days of kicking my butt in here, but now everything looks presentable. Like I actually have been podcasting for 6 years now.
No, it looks really good. It honestly just looks, more organized is all. From a graphic designer point of view, since that's one of my degrees that I don't use, it's more pleasing to the eye.
Yeah. Pro tip. If you are completely ignorant to the ways of design and structure and art and anything pertaining to spatial recognition like I am, you marry a spouse who is really, really good at that sort of thing, and then you say, honey, please help. And I assembled the shelving, and she told me where to put everything like I was a monkey with a hammer. And it worked out.
No, it looks good. I really like it.
Yep. Like I said, new intro music. It's actually something that I brewed up for another podcaster on the PBN network a while back, and she opted not to use it, so it wasn't really what she was looking for. So I told Andrew, I'm like, I kind of liked it, so we're going to give it a whirl, and if Andrew tells me it's horrible, then I'll take another shot at it. But
no, it's catchy.
Catchy is good. Catchy is good. But enough of us gesticulating. Administrative work. Thanks to all the patrons. Thanks to our listeners out there. We would love to know how we can get more of y'all out there in listener land tune in on a regular basis. I honestly am the show over the last 6 years has kind of built the audience it has through word of mouth because social media is extraordinarily unfriendly to a lot of the things we talk about, and no reasonable amount of money was ever going to get them to let me advertise on any platform, anywhere, ever, for any reason. I tried. And it's just been, beg, borrow, and steal to put together a listenership and an audience. So for those of you that are here, thanks. For those of you who aren't, hopefully somebody will tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, come listen to these two maniacs for a little while. Maybe you'll find something interesting. We did recently jump on Twitter at the MOF Podcast. So if you're on Twitter, if for no other reason than the incredible dumpster fire that has been going on there lately, then you can follow us there. And the content on Twitter from me has mostly been like most of our other social media. It's been a wonderful little mix of some genuine nuggets of good information and complete, brutal, unyielding sarcasm and snarkiness.
No, that's I jumped back on Twitter. I know Trek with MDFI, he jumped back on Twitter just with everything on the banning process. And I don't know, it's going to be interesting. I'm not holding Elon as a god or giving him any special treatment, but because he has been involved in some crap that it's sketchy in a way. And what he's doing for free speech in a way, I like it with what he's doing with Twitter, turning everybody's heads upside down. I mean, it's gotten to the point now where apparently now the administration and stuff, now they don't like what is going on at Twitter, so they're investigating and they're trying to see what he's doing with the foreign affairs because he's got he didn't fork up all the money from my understanding. He forked up a lot of it, but it was investors and stuff like that. And one of the investors apparently is a Saudi prince, which why not? Because when you have that kind of money, But yeah, so now they're like, oh, we need to investigate. We need to do a bunch of stuff. So it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. I'm curious, and I can't wait to watch the dumpster fire get bigger, because that's what it is. And the leftists that completely hate anything that's not their idea or their opinion, they're melting down, and it's interesting.
Speaking of interesting on Twitter, you know, it should come as no surprise to anyone with eyeballs and an operational frontal lobe that like shadow banning is a thing and certain kinds of content getting downvoted on social media platforms is a thing. None of that should be news to any of y'all. And if it is, guess what, guys? The people who run some of these big social media companies and big tech absolutely despise about a third to half of the country and their ideals and their morals and their political positions, their social ideas, all that. Can't stand it. And we that are, I don't want to call it say political, but like those of us who are kind of like paying attention to this kind of thing have long suspected that they were placing their finger to weigh the scales of social media to make sure that certain kinds of content went down in the feed and certain kinds of content went up in the feed. Like you can post cat videos on YouTube, get a million likes, but if you post a video trying to talk to somebody about important stuff, it gets downvoted. Maybe that's just the attention span of the average American, unfortunately. However, with Elon Musk buying Twitter, he has begun unearthing and sharing with the world once private, confidential communications between very high ranking people at the former Twitter before he purchased it. And what's come out of that is that our greatest fears and our wildest fantasies have all been revealed to have been perfectly true. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. Like, yes, content was getting downvoted with no basis in rationality, no basis in Twitter's own guidelines. They were acting on direct behalf of Congress people and the White House, which is probably the most concerning thing about this whole situation, honestly, has been that it's not just, I don't like this content, so I downvoted it. I mean, that whole private business can do what they want thing always seems to flow one direction, which I find a little suspicious. But okay, I'll give you that. But when it's like, where's the line where it becomes a serious problem when you have our political class who is supposed to be at a minimum staying out of this, if not defending the Constitution, defending people's right to free speech. Now they are actively contacting companies and saying, I want you to make this go away because it makes me look bad.
Right. And the only reason, yeah, and like I said, the only reason why it's becoming issues are the government and people that the left wing and everything, the anti-free speech, whatever you want to call them. The only reason it's been an issue now is because they don't have the button. They don't have control. They don't have their finger on the button. They can't just because with all the files, all the Twitter files that were released the other day, and then more, I think yesterday were released. It showed that Twitter and I'm sure Facebook and YouTube, and Google owns YouTube and everything, but Google itself, and it's showing that they worked actively to sway popular opinion in the election. And on top of that, other subjects too. So, especially with the current administration, you're seeing it's always in your face with the current administration, and now now they're doing the opposite. And then with Arizona, with Kerry Lake and stuff, they actively disrupted that election, and it's now coming to light, and they're getting busted for it, and they don't like it. And the fact that they can't just call up the Twitter HQ and say, hey, take this down and do all this other stuff. Like it's really putting a hurt into their overall agenda, which honestly, if you've been paying any attention, their overall agenda has not been hidden at all over the last 2 years. It's if not longer. It's been out front for a while.
I disagree with that in one small way, just one. I think the problem is that for those of us who are paying attention, for those of us who are kind of activated and woken up, we see what they're doing. You don't have to be a rocket surgeon. I mean, these people they're devious and they're malicious, but they're not exactly brain surgeons. But the problem is that by having the mainstream media as their lapdog and by having social media and big tech as their lapdog, this has been hidden from the average person.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. So
like if you haven't been listening, or if you haven't been and actually searching for it, it's been hidden. But for most of us who have been seeing the writing on the walls, who've been researching this for, I mean, since Trump was in office, and seeing what's been going on, and we don't have our heads up our butts, because honestly, like, in order for you not to see this, you have to be an ostrich. You have to have your head on the ground and afraid and not looking at it. And that's the average person. That's the person that is like, man, I'm okay. I'm getting my paycheck, even though it's a little bit less. I'm able to feed my family, even though it's a little bit harder, but things are still going okay. It's whatever, status quo, and we're going to continue on with our day.
Well, I mean, I used to not realize this, but I realized it when I was having a discussion with someone who, like, I know this person very well, and I know that they are not a malicious person. The things they were saying were not driven by like an attempt to deceive or whatever. The problem was this person, just their source of information is turn on the TV and whatever's on those 4 news channels is what they get. And when I started presenting counter information, one of 2 things happened. Some of it they just wholesale rejected because it was just such a drastic departure from what they'd already been told time after time after time. It wouldn't go in. And then the other half, it was like, really? And then I know, because had this conversation with them later, that 5 minutes after we parted ways, they just dismissed it. Because it's their trusted news source, their trusted source of information is actively lying to them about a broad range of subjects. And the problem is, if it was a single news entity that had gone rogue, the others would act as a natural homeostasis point. But the problem is, when most of them are owned by the same big conglomerates, and even if they're not owned by the same big conglomerates, they are staffed with former frickin' political class. I mean, there's a very well-known at home, like, incestuous relationship between White House staffers and congressional staffers and the media companies.
Yeah.
If that's news to you, Google it, guys. I mean, call me out on it if you think I'm wrong, but it's there and it happens all the time. Look where Jen Psaki just went. Left the White House, body wasn't even cold. She's working for big media. And that happens all the stinking time. Look at the Cuomos. I mean, I'm not saying it's just Democrats either, guys. That is a very fair criticism to lay at either mainstream party's feet. But it happens, and it happens often, and it's a little suspicious. It's like when a former general goes to work for a defense contractor, you're like, that's interesting. Or like when a former FDA or CDC official goes to work for friggin' Big Pharma, that's interesting.
You mean like SIG?
Look, bub, we could make a whole nother show out of that whole line of thought about all the interesting coincidences where watchdogs and the people they're supposed to be watching trade people back and forth all the time, and then try to convince me that they're still impartial. But I digress. The point is, what's come out of Twittergate is that, yes, 110%, Twitter was actively downvoting stories, not based on whether or not it violated their rules, but because they didn't like it, they were trying to find a way to make the rules fit. And that's been made very, very apparent, and a lot of people are really pissed, and they're calling Eon the second coming of the devil and everything else. And all I can say is freaking cope and seethe, because what's being done now is on the level of things we learned from Julian Assange, in my humble opinion. Like, we are seeing that things we knew were going on, we're seeing the proof. and the machine is reacting as it typically does. On a completely different subject,
Of why
likes
we
around.
prep.
Yeah, let's talk about why we prep. Like, what's going on Twitter right now is hilarious. And my only relationship with social media is because it's a good avenue to reach people who need to hear the message. But the message is you should be prepping because you are your own first responder and nobody's coming to save your butt when everything goes to hell in a handbasket. And right now, there are two counties out of power in North Carolina. Why? Because a couple of rednecks with a couple of friggin' hunting rifles decided to start some stuff.
And you honestly don't know that, though.
Okay,
Because that's the thing is, like, there's some misinformation going around
there always
with it.
is.
So, well, I know there is, but they have yet to prove who did it and the reason why.
But
They
but the key point here is that they have determined based on the equipment that was damaged, it was done by a medium caliber rifle.
Right, it was done by a rifle, but there was some stuff going around social media about that it was all this lady that she ran this militia group, and she was a army psyops, I believe, psychological profession, and she was kicked out of the military because she was involved with January 6th stuff and going on and on and on. And I called it from day one that basically, hey, they're going to try to turn this into they're going to try to force this down people's throats as a right wing extremism, hate group, stuff like that, because they are protesting a drag show that was in the area. And then the lady went online and said some odd comments saying, like, that this was because, or this was going to happen, blah, blah, blah. And then when the FBI and everybody came and talked to her, she's like, well, yeah, it's God's way of showing, this is what's wrong and all this stuff. So, whether or not she actually did it or not, if she did do it, she's definitely covering it up pretty dang well. But all that aside, and then if you want to go full conspiracy theorist, is this a dry run or something else? Because if you look at January 6th, what's coming out with that, the whole Whitmer kidnapping plot, which more FBI agents were involved with that than actual people that they were trying to frame for it and get rolled up in it. But so yeah, is this another false flag event that they're going to use? If you guys don't tune into Forward Observer, I highly recommend it. They've been talking about this a little bit, and Mike has the owner of and he's one of the guys that does videos and stuff. Anyway, he had some pretty good info stuff on their daily video that is this a false flag? Is this something that the FBI, is this something more than what's being said? Because they were and honestly, I'm shocked that these targets haven't happened more often, because our power grid is, you want to talk about infrastructure that's outdated. Our power grid is extremely outdated. Not many places, like you have some of the cities and stuff that are getting new and they're upgrading stuff, but a lot of places still are on very, very old technology as far as the lines go and all kinds of stuff. And they need to be updated. And our power grid, and studies have been done on everything. Our power grid is one of the most fragile things in our nation. And take a page right out of Franklin Horton's, his book series. And it's not far fetched for something to happen as far as a terror. And then these people who did it, they should be, I don't care if they were left, right, I don't care what side of the aisle they sit on, who they believe in, what they believe in, what happened, the reasons why behind it. They should be charged for terrorism. Straight up, 100%, hands down, charged for terrorism. This is a terroristic threat or a terroristic action. The amount of damage that's happening, the people that are getting hurt by this,
40,000 last
insane.
I heard.
Yeah, it's roughly like 40,000 residents, but you got to think about the people that are on life, that are on oxygen. They use
kidney dialysis, life support.
All this, yeah. But again, this goes into why we prep.
Yeah, well, then the thing of it is like, Yeah, the Department of Homeland Security has done studies on like what the death toll percentage wise would be in most metro areas given X number of hours or 20 X number of 24-hour periods of power outage. I mean, what I can say based on my own experience, Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans, 72 hours without power, and metro areas disintegrate. They turn into the third world. And if this doesn't happen in this case, like this is going to be on the audio podcast 3 days after we're recording it right now. So by then, maybe I'll have been proven wrong, but like a couple of days without power, and this is going to be at least a few days, probably a couple of weeks before this situation is unwound. But the only saving grace for this area is that it's 2 counties. That's a lot of area, but you can flood resources in from the surrounding areas and shore those areas up. It's kind of like the difference between a tornado and a hurricane. A tornado, you don't get a lot of warning and it tears a lot of stuff up, but a tornado like goes right here, and then the neighborhood on either side of that path is pretty much untouched. So you can flood resources into an area and stabilize it. But with a hurricane doesn't take out a neighborhood. It doesn't take out a city. It takes out zip codes, multiple zip codes. So you have to go 250, 300 miles sometimes from the center of a really bad hurricane strike to bring resources in to stabilize the area. And that's like the only thing that's going to work for and against this situation is that if you are close enough to the edge of the power grid that was disrupted, you have ready access to resources to stabilize yourself, stabilize your family. But if you're in the very center of that area that's knocked out, you have a whole lot of problems to deal with. And like Andrew said, this is why we prep. Because if the lights go out in North Carolina or wherever you happen to live right now, in this situation, it's not going to get fixed in a couple of hours. It's not going to get fixed in a couple of days, and you have to be able to sustain yourself. So, like it's the age-old discussion point that we keep going back to, because like we could argue endlessly about what the motivation was or what the particulars were of this attack, but there was no arguing about the outcome. People are in trouble. People are without heat, without electricity, without air conditioning. Their food is spoiling. If they're on wells, they don't have water. And if you don't have power, then you can't get fuel out of the ground, which means everybody's going to start running out of gasoline pretty quick.
Well, think about if you're in the city, too. I mean, if you're in the city, the water treatment plants aren't running. So you have us, and then on top of the sewer system, it's not going to be functioning correctly. So just think about the backup sewage. I mean, what that would alone cause and illness.
And then think about the impact, the downstream impacts to emergency services without power. I mean, most well-staffed hospitals have emergency generators, but that's emergency power, and that's for as long as they have fuel. So this problem that's been created is having all these cascading effects, and that's why I always say, like, you know, we can debate about what caused this. There's no debate about the outcome, though. The outcome is if you don't have the stuff in your garage or in your shed or in your home right now to deal with this problem, it's not going to get dealt with.
And I'm sure there was a handful of people and lived in that area that were like, well, I'll get to it tomorrow. And tomorrow came and they woke up in the dark. I mean, or well, I don't know exactly when it happened, but you know, they were in the dark basically. So it's one of those things where it's like, if you need to put something off until tomorrow, make sure you have some good reasons for it. And you know, try not to put things off till tomorrow. Get off your butt and do some preps.
The ultimate life lesson in that vein is, if putting it off till tomorrow could in any way, shape, or form screw you over, don't put it off till tomorrow.
Right.
Like, as soon as we hang up this, I got to take my truck down the road and gas up because I got to drive to New Orleans tomorrow for work. And as a general rule, as a guiding principle, as your spiritual advisor, I advise you, have a freaking full gas tank before you drive into a large metro area, because I want to have enough fuel to get down there and then take the longest route humanly possible back without having to stop for fuel. Just saying.
Yeah.
Like, and if that ever sounds like paranoia, I've literally had days where I drove to work one day, something crazy happened, because I mean, where I live, I have to drive across several small and one very large bridge to get to work and likewise to get back. And the main bridge between my work and home was shut down. I think it was a chemical spill or it was a really bad accident. There was no getting over that bridge to come home. The route I ended up taking to get home was with traffic took an extra hour and a half on what's normally a 45-minute drive. And I didn't have to worry about fuel because I had plenty. I didn't have to worry about food or water because I keep food and water in my truck. Like a, the age old an ounce of prevention, a pound of cure is so applicable in these situations because if you do just that much work ahead of the emergency, when the emergency happens, you shrug your shoulders and say, okay, turn on some music, take an extra hour and a half to have to drive home, got to drive, an extra 40 or 50 miles out of my way to drive around this problem. Who cares?
Yeah.
Call my wife and let her know I'm going to be late. I mean, but if I'd have gone to work that morning with a quarter tank of gas, that extra 50 miles would have started to become a problem very quickly. So you wanted to talk about something that I was not prepared for because I didn't have time to prep for it, but I do want to throw this up real fast. That event moved propane and propane accessories to the top of the list. Pro tip: I like to play this game with new preppers where I theoretically go turn your utilities off one at a time and you tell me how you're going to get around it. Because like whenever I talk to somebody about, oh, well, what if the power goes out? They're like, oh, well, I can do this and the other. And I'm like, okay, well, what if I take that away too? What do you do now? So like, if your answer is, well, if the power goes out, I can still have a way to cook my food. It's like, with what? At a certain point, having a couple extra propane tanks around back so you can still boil water and, cook stuff it makes sense.
Well, that, and it goes back to the whole, the one or two is one and one is none.
Two is one is none.
And if I, like right now I have my stove is electric. Okay. If the power goes out, I have a gas, a small single burner gas stove. I don't know. I can't remember how many cylinders I have, but then it's like, okay, if I run out of those, okay, now, and it's like cooking wise, I mean, I would have more than two ways of doing cooking, boiling water, filtration, all that stuff. But two is one is none. It's something good to live by. So yeah, this is something that during the elections, Michigan went completely blue. We've had a Democratic governor, which she got reelected, unfortunately. But we lost the Senate and the House, which is the first time, I think they said in 46 years, I think it was, that both chambers are blue, meaning the Democrats have the majority. When that happened, I just was like, yep, wait for it. It's going to be soon that we're going to get gun control bills. And as of December 1st, we have those bills. Not any red flag laws yet, but I am sure they are going to be coming since Whitmer, good old Stretching Gretchen there. She said basically when Biden got all his stuff passed, and she said put a red flag bill on her desk and she will sign it. But anyway, so starting off, there's a couple of them. We have House Bill number 6544. As of right now, let's see here. Let me go to it real quick. As of right now, just looking at the Michigan legislature page, I do not see any co-sponsors. So that will be very interesting. But it's this old geezer out of District 15, which, if I remember right, if memory serves, that's over down by Dearborn, stuff like that. So apparently they have a high crime rate, but he's set to take your rights away. Anyway, 6544. It's a bill to ban the manufacture, possession, purchase, and sale of an assault weapon. So basically, it's a straight out ban, assault weapons ban, which has been proven unconstitutional. Not only is it common sense that it's unconstitutional, but Bruin, the Supreme Court, has ruled it unconstitutional, which in a way you're seeing these states still violate Bruin which tells me that, I mean, the Supreme Court has no authority in the U.S. Again, unless it's to the person, the to the anti-freedom movement, it's to their liking. That's when they are okay with letting things lie. But otherwise, yeah, which it'd be interesting to see. I would like to see some more damaging things happen to people, to lawmakers when they put this stuff in, when they know it's going to get go through court. I would love to see something more damaging come down and affect them, lose their job for one, tar and feathered. But that's something completely different. But House Bill number 6544. What?
I was just going to say the inherent problem here is that the Supreme Court has no enforcement authority.
Mm-hmm.
That authority is held by the executive branch.
Mm-hmm.
It's the old Schoolhouse Rock. The judiciary tells you if the law is legal or not, the judiciary interprets the law, and the executive branch enforces it, and the House and the Senate pass laws. And in this case, two of those three branches are run by psychopaths. So there will be no holding these judges and these politicians to account. The only account there is going to be is that if they pass it and we spend 2 or 3 years and God knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars of our own money fighting this through the courts to get up to a level where somebody with some freaking common sense will eventually slap it down, declare it unconstitutional, only for these idiots to go back and revise one word in the freaking law and try it again.
Oh, look at what's going on. I mean, look at what's going on in New York and stuff. That's the thing, is they keep applying, they keep pushing. But yeah, so I just want to wrap this up real quick for 6544. But and honestly, I mean, I gotta give it to the guy. It's not all drawn out mumbo jumbo like legal jargon. I mean, it's 2 pages, and it's actually
That's
a page
impressive.
and a half. It's a page and a half if you actually take away the House Bill number 6544 text and all the space at the bottom, like separating the text from the title. Like, it's a page and a half. It's right to the point. But it's a ban on anything that they deem scary, basically. But get this, if you have that said firearm, before this got passed and enacted, you're grandfathered in. However, you have to register said firearm with the state police, and every 5 years you have to register that firearm. And if you are a person who violates this, it's 5 years in federal prison. So, yeah. So the next bill that I want to cover really quick, it's House Bill 6546. And basically, this one is to amend everything, saying you can no longer open carry shotguns or rifles in public. So they're trying to do away with the protesting, the people that were protesting, the people that were on Capitol Hill during some of the stuff going on, that were actively carrying firearms, that were open carrying. They're trying to basically get that thrown out, that you can no longer do that. And of course, the average FUD or the average person who is like, well, I use my gun for hunting. That's all the Second Amendment's about. Those people, they did say, well, if you're hunting, you can carry your gun. If you're going to the range, you can have your gun out. But people need to wake up and see what these bills do, especially open carry, what the implications of it are. I'm surprised they didn't go after open carry pistols, since they didn't include pistols in this, which I'm very surprised.
So, is this prohibition on carrying arms in public going to apply to the protective details of politicians and police officers?
Yeah,
no. Okay, I didn't think so. Just checking.
Yeah, and not. I mean, and the one thing I threw out on Instagram was neither of these bills will stop crime. They will not stop crime. They will not slow crime down. You have the cesspool that is Detroit and Flint, along with probably Saginaw on the other side of the state and all that stuff, that they are a breeding ground for gangs and violence, and things will not change. and so that's what's going to be interesting. So you know what, but so there's going to be a long fight ahead. We'll see where this goes. If you live in Michigan, keep your eye on it. Again, House Bill 6546 and 6544, the assault weapons ban. I mean, I just re-upped my FPC, my Firearms Policy Coalition membership. So if you are not a member, I highly recommend going and getting a membership because they're already jumping on it a little bit, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, it's ridiculous, unfortunately. But so it's gonna be a long fight ahead. Hopefully, we'll see. Hopefully, it won't be. I'm hoping that there's enough people that just because they have the super majority, or I don't want to say super majority, but because they have the majority, they put this in. I'm hoping that this guy is basically on an island by himself, and that you won't see much from anybody else. I'm hoping that you don't see people jump on with him, but it's write your representative, your state rep, your district rep. Make sure you're contacting people. That's what's going to stop this. So,
And most importantly, don't be shy about expressing your opinion. I won't say that it's universally successful, but I will say that, yeah, I've said it before. I really think that we constitutionally minded people have to stop being so damn concerned about being disinvited or othered by peer groups because we have opinions that, by the way, are backed up by the Constitution, by our historical laws, but are not in vogue. You know what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. And honestly, if the bill did get through and assault weapons ban, blah blah blah, don't comply. Don't.
Mm-mm.
What was it? Connecticut, I think it was there. People were burning the registration slips uh, in front of the state capitol and stuff. Which, yeah. But as this moves through, I definitely it's going to be interesting to get some people on. Some others from Michigan, I'd like to hear from you. Maybe get some other guys on, and even Trek, get his thoughts on it and see what if this goes through, if this keeps pushing. So, but yeah, I kind of want to throw that out there. So if you're not aware, because again, these bills get brought up and they really don't get talked about at all, unless it's affecting somebody, a group, or something. Even then, the Second Amendment ones usually get kind of thrown through. Uh, and yeah, so I'm hoping that there's nothing to this, but you never know. So
No. Now, halfway through the show, last show we alluded to the fact that we'd be having a good old discussion about firearm training. Um, Preface: neither Andrew nor I are experts in firearms training nor professional trainers. We're enthusiastic novices, is the way I portray myself usually. But I do a fair amount of dry fire practice, not as much range time as I would like. I think Andrew would probably agree with that because there's no such thing as getting as much range time as you like. I mean, he only has so much plasma to sell off to afford ammo, so at a certain point that becomes self-regulating.
and I keep buying other stuff with my plasma too.
But it's fun stuff at least. It's not like you're paying
Yeah.
bills or buying groceries with plasma money. But I put up a poll on the Facebook group. If you're not part of our Facebook group, if you don't subscribe to our social media, shame on you. You should probably look us up. Matter of Facts Podcast, MOF Podcast. We're not hard to find. Go to www.mofpodcast.com and all of our social media links are there, except for Twitter, which my co-host / webmaster needs to amend. But I put up a poll in the group, asked everybody else what particular drills or what kind of training they really focused on. And I was not shocked to find out that the overall majority of the training that people are doing is just basic get the shot from concealment, which is exactly what Andrew and I said. Like, that's the most common drill we do is shoot from concealment using our concealed carry guns. Because, two things. You should practice the thing that you're most likely to need, and you should practice the thing you suck at the most. And the thing that most people are most likely to need is to be able to get somebody off of them that's trying to hurt them. And that's usually going to happen with your carry gun, unless you just happen to be the guy that walks to Walmart strapped with a friggin' AR and a plate carrier. I'd love to meet you and have that conversation. But, the average person, we're carrying a handgun, maybe a spare magazine. It's under our shirt or it's under our coat, and the drill is how fast can you get your shirt up, your gun out, and get the first shot on target, because whoever shoots first and shoots the most usually wins the gunfight, typically. And that was exactly what Andrew and I both hit on, and that was what I think like 3/4 of the people that I polled said that was their primary drill, was shoot from concealment.
Well, I mean, if you discuss the the train like you fight mentality, I mean, that's you're not going. I'm not going to the store with a plate carrier, an AR, and or shotgun strapped to my back. I mean, Mad Max it all you want, I guess. Think about it, but we're not in that dystopia future yet. And I say yet because it's not very far off, I don't think. But you train like you fight. So I conceal carry every single day. And if I'm going to the store, I throw my pistol on. And what's nice is right now it's winter in Michigan, so I think it's temperatures like 35, 40 degrees today or something like that. And so it's like throw a hoodie on and something big enough to where I can conceal carry, and I don't have to worry about printing like you do in the summer, stuff like that. So, and what's nice is you can kind of carry a bigger gun in the winter. That's what's nice in Michigan. I can go from my 9C, subcompact pistol MMP to my CZ SP01, and no one will bat an eye because I can't see it. but yeah, no, it's but train like you fight. I highly recommend that. If you try to work on getting off the X, work on drawing from concealment. Think about, and I think about this a lot when I'm exiting the store or even entering the store. When I get out of my vehicle, what hand am I carrying all my crap in? Do I have my keys in my right hand? Well, I switch if I catch myself doing that, I will throw them either in my pocket or I'll put them in my left hand. Carrying groceries. When I carry groceries out, I put all the groceries. If I don't have enough, if I have enough to where I don't need a cart or whatever, I'll carry my left hand because I need to be able to get to my pistol. I carry appendix style, so I need to be able to get to my gun. That second, the couple seconds that it takes to swap the groceries and everything over or drop them, if anything, you drop the groceries. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd rather be that second faster because that's going to win the gunfight, that and accurate fire. Yeah, train like you fight. We hammered that last episode, and I think we're going to hammer that again this episode.
And see, for years and years, because I had my daughter's 10 now, but when she was younger, I used to hold her hand with my left hand, keep the groceries in my right hand, or my car keys in my right hand, because I'm right-handed. I go for my gun with my right hand. I wanted to have a firm grip on her left hand in case I had to maneuver her around very quickly to clear the shot, get her behind me, or whatever else. So
yeah, it's one of those. I don't have kids, so
you don't.
But you having kids, you having a daughter that you're like, that's the thing to think about too, is if you are a parent and you have a small child with you, if they're not on your hip, think about, okay, what do I got to do? Well, if you think about executive protection, their sole purpose is to get the primary out of the line of fire and get them to safety. Well, your child is your primary, your wife is your primary, your girlfriend, whatever. That's your primary. So if you're right-handed, yeah, I highly recommend having your left hand in a hold of that child, or that close to her. At least have it free to where if something were to happen, you can grab them if you don't already have a hold of them, and you can yank them out of the way, yank them behind you, push them behind a car, get them down on the ground. Something's going on so that you can get them out of the way, that you could draw then with your right hand. And the groceries, I mean, sorry, but your luck, you're just going to be breaking some eggs. So who cares at this point?
Yeah, but the reason I bring that up is because I'm very quick to tell most people there are very few wrong answers and lots of right answers. Or there's very few times where I'm going to definitively hardcore say my way is the only way to do it. So like again, depending on I have a child, you don't, it exactly flipped the way we run that, where you always say I have everything on my left hand to keep my right hand clear, and I'm saying, but in my case, I have the most important thing in my left hand. I keep my right hand with the stuff I can drop on the ground, and I don't care. And the extra second it takes me to drop the stuff and go for the gun is offset by the fact that I already have my left hand on my child, and I don't have to, I don't have to change her from one side to the other, hold her with my left hand to get to the gun. It's just,
Right.
again,
Yeah, it's just
there,
everybody's different, and everybody's
yeah.
situation is gonna be different. But
But the
train
key is
with that situation, like train
exactly.
for that situation.
So the key is
So
whether you do it one way or the other, it's to think about why am I doing it that way? Is that the way I should be doing it? And don't ever dogmatically buy into this is the only way to do it. There are multiple good ways. There's probably one best way, and there's very few wrong ways. The wrong ways are the ways that don't work. Everything else is like degrees of goodness. Now, that said, this is my usual carry holster, and yes, it's leather. It's not Kydex. Y'all can all get over that. I got this thing because originally the gun that I carry, I had a hard time finding a holster for, and CZs are a little more popular now, but still, your holster options are limited. So I found this, and honestly, by the time I started seeing Kydex holsters that fit my gun, I like this. It's comfortable and it works, and it fully conceals the trigger, it covers the trigger guard, it works. And it's got a single clip, so it's really quick and easy to just stick down in my pants, and it works. But the other thing that I practice with is this. How many of y'all have ever ankle carried a gun? It is a pain in the ass. It's not pleasant. It's not fun to it's not fun to either bend over or drop down to one knee, yank your pant leg up, and retrieve this freaking gun. This is something I used to carry a J-frame, usually when I'm wearing dress clothes and I know I'm going to take my jacket off, because there is just not many good ways to conceal a gun of any sort wearing dress clothes. Like, your options start to diminish fairly quickly, especially in non-permissive environments. However, if you're in a place where somebody might check your waist, there is about a 0.1% chance they're going to check your ankles for a weapon. So I carry this, and it's never been seen. It's never been found out. I've never had a gun fall out of the holster because it's got the retention on the back side of it. But this presents a new set of problems because now I have a whole nother gun, a whole nother manual of arms, a whole nother way to practice reloads, a whole nother way to practice drawing. But again, I don't practice with this super often because 9 times out of 10, I'm drawing out of this at 3 o'clock, right on my hip. But if you have multiple carry guns, or if you carry in multiple ways based on the way you dress, you have to practice all of them, ostensibly in the order that you're most likely to need them. The next most common thing that was practiced by our listeners was reloads for rifle and handgun. And I guess I didn't really see that coming because I kind of figured, of course, you'd be practicing reloads, but there were enough people that definitively said that that's something they specifically focus on is reloads. Which, again, I guess I just took for granted because I figured, of course, you would, but now I'm starting to wonder if
but
there's a lot of people out there that don't practice reloads.
but it also all depends. I mean, I would say, yeah, practicing reloads in general. I mean, that's a good thing to do. Uh, but I hardly ever carry a spare mag on me. Like I might throw one in my pocket. I don't like. I need to. One of the things that I've been looking at getting, and actually I do have one now. I remember. I just need to find it since I moved. But it's just like an inside the waistband spare mag, caddy basically. And
Mm.
but no, I have spare mags in my Jeep. I have one in my door. Like I have spare mags available to me. It's just usually I just don't throw one in my pocket when I'm out and about. The gun that I normally every day carry is I think with the extension on it, I think it holds like 17 or 18, I think, in it. And so yeah, and that's something that you gotta weigh your options, your pros and cons. I mean, pros of carrying a second mag is you have additional rounds that just in case. But um, and cons is if you run out of ammo, hopefully you can lob that pistol if that person is not pincushion by then. But yeah, no, it's I mean, reloads in general, I would definitely suggest to train, because especially with rifle reloads, people they go from pistol to rifle, and the it is different. Which it all depends on which way do you have the mag facing, and for easier access, and what do I do with my thumb, and what do I do here? It's stuff that we just in general you should practice it.
Yeah, and for that matter, I would challenge a person that says they want to practice reloads, which you should. Are you reloading using a realistic scenario, like the J frame, the ankle holster? When I practice reloading that, I'm practicing reloading from a speed strip, which is, little narrow strip of rubber with that holds 6 rounds by the rim. I download those to 4. There's a reason for that. There's madness behind that method. But I download my speed strips to 4 so that the center 2 holes are empty, and I've got 2 rounds on either side. I draw it out of my pocket by hooking a finger in between those rounds, so it's super quick and easy to index blindfolded. And because I'm carrying a 5-shot J-frame, you can very quickly snap 4 rounds into that firearm, and then you have to take the exact same amount of time it took you to pop 2 rounds in the cylinder to get the 5th one. You see what I'm saying? So it cuts down my time to reload that J-frame by almost 30%, by about a third, to just stick 4 in it and slam the cylinder shut versus go for the 5th one. And by downloading the speed strip down to 4 from 6, because it holds 6, I have a better index point. So I've practiced and trained to do this reload a very specific way. I always have that speed strip in my right front pocket with my car keys, flat packed, where it's hiding. And that's how I practice my reload exactly the same way every time. I have to dig around the car keys to get the speed strip out. I have to fight the rounds into the cylinder. I have to make sure I smack that ejector nice and hard to get, because with a snub nose, for any of you that don't carry them, the ejector is very, very short, and it's very easy to not hit it hard enough to pop all those rounds out of the cylinder. Especially if you're a smart guy like I am, and you put five empty cases that have been shot into the revolver to practice this, because those 5 cases that have been shot have expanded ever so slightly, and they're going to drag on the cylinder when you go to eject them. And if you don't hit that ejector star hard enough, guess what? They're not going to come out of the cylinder without a fight. So I do all this to stack the deck against myself to make the reload harder, because it's the way I am going to carry in the field, in the street, in the church, in the whatever. Like, I would never practice reloading this J-frame from a speed loader, because I don't carry a pouch with speed loaders on my belt in my dress clothes. I carry that speed strip. So again, it's all about whatever way you've determined is the way you are going to carry this, because it makes the most sense for you and your environment. That is the way you should practice. That is the way you should train. You should not try to game the system to get the Instagram clout and make sure that your reload is, YouTube speed. You should make it harder so that it forces you to get better. And if you determine, hey, it's taking me like 3 seconds to fight this speed loader out of my pocket around the car keys, then maybe you need to change the way you carry. You don't change the way you train to make it faster. You change the way you carry, and then you train that way. And it sounds like, kind of a big no duh to most people. However, I'm having to point it out because some people they get it in their head that we're all sitting there with a shot timer. We're trying to get Instagram clout, and I just don't care. I want to get better at what I'm doing. I want it to be hard. I want it to suck, because that's how you improve.
A timer isn't terrible. It's just you push yourself until the wheels fall off, back up a couple steps, and then train and push yourself, and then go to you go till the wheels fall off, and you keep pushing that envelope. And so the thought process is as long as if you keep pushing yourself to that envelope, it's eventually you're gonna get better. It's only a matter of time. So
Yeah. And before we get to these next three drills, two of which I had to look up because I'd never heard of them, and they sound interesting, but I'm going to have to divert my attention to read about the silly things because I'd never heard of them before somebody brought them up in the poll. But the same way we were talking about reloads for pistol, I challenge you that if you're reloading for rifle, it needs to be a realistic use case scenario. Like, Andrew, under what circumstances, not normal, not every day, but under what circumstances could you see yourself having to use a rifle for your own self-defense? Pretty bad situations, right?
very bad
Okay.
situation.
So we're talking about like plate carrier, battle belt, like we're not talking about concealed carry anymore if you're carrying a rifle. I mean, I've seen the meme where like it's winter clothes and one guy's like, I can carry my full size gun and my 6 mags, and the other guy's like, I have a FAL under my jacket. I mean, it's a cute meme, but we don't
Well,
conceal full size rifles under our coats
I
even in
mean,
the
but
winter.
no, but I do carry something in the backpack. So
Fair point.
and so that's the thing is if you carry a truck gun, if you carry a firearm in a backpack or something off body, you need to train how long is it going to take me to, even if you don't have a plate carrier, all that crap, like what's it going to do to, how long is it going to take me to pull my backpack? And that's the thing though too. You got to change your mindset with returning fire, because if you are carrying off body, you can even say off body even with a pistol. But if you're carrying in a backpack with a rifle in a backpack, you need to get to cover, and you need to practice on zipping that backpack, and if you have a law folder on it, like what do you got to do? Do you have to put it together? You break your AR. You have to break your AR down, so you have to put it together, then charge it. Like how are you going to keep it? Like okay, so you're out and about now. I can't necessarily just I can have a spare mag, a spare pistol mag in my pocket. I can't really carry a spare P mag in my pocket. So and then that way, okay, so I have 30, 28 AP download, and and then okay, so do I basically guerrilla style these mags together and tape them to each other, or do I get a couple or stuff like that so that I have a spare mag with the rifle? And so I mean, all this stuff is taken into consideration and taken into fact if you carry that way. And that's the thing is I carry a backpack and I have a firearm in my backpack. So how long is it going to take? And look at the backpacks too. Like you don't want a super quote unquote tactical backpack. Which a lot of the companies nowadays are making backpacks to where they're not looking crazy gun bunny kind of thing. Like they get bigger pockets. But
I guess,
I mean that's the thing is look at the backpack. So like I have a Vertex is what I carry, and that backpack you grab the top, you grab the sides, you yank it open, those zippers fly down, it folds right open quick, and you don't have to worry about anything getting hung up. So you definitely check your gear, and if make it work.
but here was my question. In that scenario where you're backpack carrying a larger firearm than a handgun, where are your magazines for your reloads? Are they in the backpack?
That's what I'm saying. So if you're carrying if you're carrying a pistol, you can put if you're carrying an extra mag in your pocket or whatever like that. But a rifle, yeah, in order to have an extra mag, you got to have that. It's going to be in the backpack. So work on, and that's what I'm saying is like so where is that mag at? Make sure you can get to that pretty quick. Make sure that if you need to couple the mags together, what is it going to get hung up on stuff? Is it going to fit? Is it going to be too bulky? Like all that crap you need to put into account and train for.
Mm-hmm. And here's a thought: are you going to take and where the backpack on your chest like a human kangaroo so that your reloads are in the front? Are you going to wear it on your back where you have to every time, or one shoulder where every time you need a reload, you have to drop the backpack to get to it? I mean, those are all things to work out and train for. But, like talking about truck gun, I mean, this is the bag that I've built a while back. I call it the bailout bag. Other people have a very pejorative term for it. They call this my man purse, and they can go to hell. But this is literally the bag that I
Okay,
built
Indiana
out.
Jones.
Listen, this is not Indiana Jones. This is an old, I think, a World War II style map case. But it's a very heavy-duty canvas bag. I wear it crossbody. And this thing has 3 Scorpion mags, 2 pistol mags for my carry gun, and a whole treasure trove worth of a blowout kit, all tucked away in one nice little package. So the whole point of showing this is that when I practice doing reloads with my Scorpion, I practice it out of this bag, because whenever I go on a long trip and the Scorpion goes in the truck, this goes with it. Because if I have to pull the Scorpion out to deal with a problem, it is a big freaking problem that I can't solve with a handgun. Which means I'm going to be, concealed carries out the window, and I want to have my reloads right here on my hip where I can get to them very easily. I want to have a blowout kit. I want things to deal with bigger problems. So this is all one system that I built to work together, and that's how I train. I don't train with the Scorpion with like a speed holster on my hip where I'm trying to do IPSC reloads and crap like that. I don't care. I'm practicing something that I don't want to say is realistic, because the odds of ever having to use this in anger are fairly limited, but I'm practicing a scenario that's all kind of built to work together. Like if I have to pull the Scorpion out, this has got to come with it, because this is the support gear to make that work. And then, of course, if we're going to upsize to an AR, I'm not lifting my plate carrier over my head to show it to the camera, but it's also right here behind me. But plate carrier, battle belt, because all this is support gear that's meant to back up those specific firearms. Those firearms and the support gear are all configured around a use case scenario, which is if I have to pull an AR out of the closet to defend my family, we are so far past the concealed carry normal situation. We're in like New Orleans has turned into Baghdad post-Hurricane Katrina type situations, where I don't care if my neighbors think I'm nuts for wearing a plate carrier, because the situation is bad enough to merit that. Like after Hurricane Ida, we didn't leave this home without a plate carrier and a rifle in the truck. Not that I live in a bad area, not that it got bad, but because the potential was there that if something popped off, I wasn't going to have time to call 911 and wait a week for them to show up. I had to deal with the problem immediately and take care of my family. So it all comes back around to that idea of when the potential danger reaches a certain point, you change to a different weapon system, and that different weapon system has different support gear, and that's how you practice. If I practice with the rifle, I practice with the plate carrier, the battle belt, because that's all the stuff that works together. If I practice with the Scorpion, I pull out the bag, because the bag's built to go with it. If I'm practicing with a handgun, I'm either have a magazine like stuffed in a pocket, because that's how I'm going to carry it, or I've got a speed strip in a pocket, but I'm practicing in the way I'm most likely to use that firearm. I'm not practicing for Instagram clout, because I just don't care. So that's been beat thoroughly to death.
That horse has been like broken leg and shot.
Yes. This was one there were a couple of votes for. Bill drill is just 7 yards from the surrender position, 6 rounds on target. It's kind of an old hat drill. There's really not a lot to it. I don't think that's a bad thing, though, because it's something that the average person can practice without a lot of coaching or a lot of mental activity. It's all about how fast can you get your gun out from concealment, get 6 shots on target. You're watching your recoil. You're not letting the gun get away from you. It's a simple drill, but it gets the job done. It's basically what we talked about originally, which was first shot from concealment. You're just also adding in recoil mitigation and following your sights between shots with everything we've already talked about. Now, the Pressburg no fail. I had never, ever in my life heard of this drill until one of our listeners dropped this into my lab. So, one round, 25 yards, 3.5 second par time. Sounds reasonable with a handgun, right? One shot, 25 yards, 3.5 second par time. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
No,
got
that's right.
you got to do it 10 times in a row without missing to clear the drill.
Yeah.
I do a fair amount of pistol shooting, but I'm pretty sure I drop a couple of rounds 25 yards.
Yeah. Easy to do.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't like shooting at quarters at that range. I think you're shooting a B8, which is ostensibly a torso-sized target. But I mean, still, I
Yeah.
think
B8s. If you guys don't have B8 targets, I highly recommend buying a box of them. You can buy 1,000 of them for a pretty good price, and they're some of the best targets out there. Just if you wanna throw one up, to shoot at, but basically they're really good targets, especially if you're trying to do like a like 10 seconds, 10 yards, 10 rounds kind of thing. Which I think that's what the build drill is.
yeah. And the last one, the Blauer's Hateful Eight. I had never heard of this. It sounds like an interesting thing, though. 8 yards, B8, par time's 8 seconds. You start with the gun holster loaded with 4 rounds and 2 spare mags with 2 rounds each. Your course fires to draw, fire 4, reload, fire 2, reload, fire 2. So it's kind of a mixing of it's almost like build drill with 2 extra rounds with reloads mixed in. It sounds like a pretty good comprehensive drill, and it forces you to do lots of different things. Like the one thing that this does, which really didn't come in the conversation, but I think it's really important for a person to figure out, is when a person is doing firearms training, live fire at the range. I encourage everyone, and I don't say this lightly, but like, take a moment to pay a little bit less attention to where you're landing your shots on the target. Don't just get all crazy with me, but pay more attention to the feeling of that firearm as it cycles and when it doesn't cycle. So in other words, when you go to slide lock, like, it's really easy to lose sight of that when your adrenaline is full blast and your heart rate's 200 beats a minute and your blood pressure is about this far away from a stroke because you're in the middle of an emergency situation. But if you can really train that into your brain where you know what it feels like when the gun goes cold, it can help shorten that reaction time between gun gone cold and gun hot ready to go again. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't have to go through the exercise of I pulled the trigger and nothing happened. I look at the gun like a monkey, doing things to a football, and then I finally realize the slide's locked open. Or at a minimum, just get familiar with what your gun looks like when the slide is locked to the rear. Like, you should be able to very quickly break your wrist to point the barrel slightly skyward and see slide lock to the back, empty chamber, and you know what the problem is. So you don't have it's all about building that muscle memory, building the neurons between your eyeballs and your brain so that when the gun goes cold, you know it's cold, you fix the problem, you go back to work.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that, like, if there's one thing I don't care for about the thing you and I said we practiced the most, which was shirt up, go for the gun and concealment, get the shot on target, is that we don't, or we just didn't discuss reloads, shooting the slide lock, doing administrative reloads, and all that kind of stuff. I mean, let's call it what it is. The average gunfight is over in 3 to 5 rounds. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, it's over within just a few seconds. I mean, that's
so the greatest likelihood is that all of this discussion about how fast can I do a speed reload and how do I do all these things is going to become very relevant, because by the time the gun has gone cold, by the time the slide's locked to the rear, by the time you have to reload, the problem's already been fixed. Going by the averages, going by the statistics. I mean, we can debate whether or not that's a good thing to bet on, but I'm just saying the statistics work out that way. So the most important thing in my mind, and the thing I train for the most, is whoever gets the first shot and the most shots on target wins the argument. So that's what I personally advocate people train for. But I also do agree that, it's in everyone's best interest that they spend some time practicing reloads, practicing gun handling, and practicing all these other things.
Right. And that's the thing is like practice the different kind of reloads, because the way that some of the training that I've had and stuff, a lot of it, like the tactical reload, is pushed more than the slide stop, because like the tactical. I mean, if you're sitting there and you're bang 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 slide lock, uh, either you're throwing rounds downrange at somebody or something. It's like something's going on, and you're not having really anything effective if rounds are coming back. So I mean, but that's the thing though, is like if you're moving, if you know, and but if you're entering a building, doing something, if but train with slide or tactical or the tactical reloads too, to where you're not completely dry, but you just top your gun off basically with a fresh magazine and retain your old magazine. Um, but yeah, the biggest thing with the hateful eight drill that I could see a good takeaway is movement. Um, is when you're reloading, are you just standing there in place and you're fishing? You know, you're pulling your mag up, you're dropping the other mag, you're reloading. Okay, now I'm shooting twice, or are you standing in place, or as you're reloading, you're stepping off the X? It's called get off the X. You have somebody that is actively engaging to you. So if you sit there and you pop off some rounds, and then as you reload, you step off. You step left or right. Don't step forward or backwards. And that's a whole other conversation too. But step left or right, run to cover, do whatever you got to do. Take a knee, um, whatever you got to do, and as you're moving, then you throw another mag in, slide lock, reload, and engage again. Uh, but yeah, I that I could definitely see that being included within the hateful eight drill, which would be very helpful, and it'd be a good it'd be a good drill to do.
Yep. And public service announcement before we start wrapping up. I am morally required to shill for companies that I use their gear and I like their gear, and I only recommend for companies that I like their gear. And anybody that accuses me of shilling junk, come to my house and let's have a discussion about it. But this is a Mantis X10. We've talked about it on the
Mhm.
show many, many times. Man, you can get into a Mantis very reasonably
For $100, I think.
for a fair bit less than this. The X10 is kind of the full Monty, but if you really want some cool features, you got to pony up the money. But for a basic Mantis, you're talking about a little over $100, I think. I don't know what the effect of Black Friday / inflation will have done to that price, but about $100. Dry fire only. You can put in a lot of freaking times, slap and hammer the firing pin in your house without burning money, without burning gas, without burning ammo, and you can get in the reps. And anybody out there that says dry fire leads to bad habits, say that to guys like JJ Ricasa and some of the most accomplished, like competition shooters out there. They all dry fire. I used to think dry. I don't believe I ever, and someone's going to fact check me on the internet because the internet's forever, but I don't believe I ever said that dry fire didn't work, and that's why I didn't do it. I used to say dry fire was aggravating and there was no feedback, and that's why I didn't like doing it. But I don't believe I ever said it wasn't effective as hell at encouraging a person to get the reps, develop the hand eye coordination, get the muscle memory in. It's great for all those things. It's aggravating to do. Mantis Technologies gives you some feedback and encourages you to train, and that's why I recommend them to everybody.
Yeah, the currently so I mean Mantis has many products that they're some of the best dry fire products I've ever used. But Mantis right now, if you for a pistol, the X2, which is the base model, is $99 right now, and
That's
that right
strong.
there it's dry fire only, where like the X10 and the X3 is live fire and dry fire, but X2 is dry fire only, handgun and rifle is what you can use it with.
Mm-hmm.
The X10 is the full Monty. I mean, you can dry fire, live fire. I believe CO2 as well. Bow. It works on a bow, shotgun, rifle, handgun. Then they have the X3, which is dry fire, live fire, and then it's handgun and rifle only for 169. The
Yeah,
X10 is 249, which is it's pretty crazy. All what you get for $250. But I do want to throw out there before you go on with anything else. Use the code, or not code. Sorry, use our affiliate link. That's what I want to throw out there. Is go to our website, use our affiliate link, go to mwfpodcast.com. If you go to the MOF library, go to affiliates, our partners, click on the link. It kicks us some money, which is always nice. And it tells them that we sent you, which is nice to know. It's nice to hear that, hey, you guys kick some business over our way. So
it's also in the show notes.
It is.
Which makes it a lot easier to find.
Yeah.
But other than the X series, I've been playing with Blackbeard X. I've been playing with Blackbeard for about a year. I got my Blackbeard, paid full freight for it, I think last Christmas about. And the Blackbeard has been an awesome piece of kit. It all the Blackbeard did was reset the trigger on your AR, which, I mean, I managed to make that and a Mantis X10 play together in the same sandbox somewhat unwillingly. So I was able to get, the trigger to reset with the Blackbeard. I was able to get the X10 to give me some feedback on how I was pulling my shots, and it worked okay. But what Blackbeard X does by integrating basically an X3 into the battery pack of the Blackbeard X is that it gives you the ability to do everything you could do before using the the Mantis X to read how well you're pulling your trigger, and it also gives you the ability using Blackbeard X to look at how you're transitioning between targets and how much time you're spending staring at a target before you pull your shot off. It's like Blackbeard X has become that thing I recommend to anybody who's serious about training with an AR. But even if you don't have, several $100s, let's call it what it is, to spend on an X10 or Blackbeard X, they're out of they're out of my reach, and I don't feel like disrupting the shot because we're going to wrap this up in just a minute. But over here, right outside of the frame, I'm reaching for it right now, I'm about a foot short, I have a box of dummy rounds, snap caps. Some of them are homemade dummy rounds I made on my reloading press. And I use those very often to practice reloads. I will top off a magazine so that way when I send the magazine home and I drop the slide will actually drop. I use those to practice all sorts of things. So, like, call it what it is. All you really need to practice reloads with most firearms is the gun itself and the wherewithal to put the ammunition somewhere where there's no chance it will get into the gun, and you can dry fire in your own home. Some of this stuff where we're talking about recoil mitigation, you're not going to be able to practice dry fire. You're going to have to spend some money, get some ammo, go to a range, do that. But things like drawing from concealment, things like weapons handling, things like reloads, you can practice all that in your home, and it doesn't take anything. It just takes making the time and doing it. But, whether you subscribe to any of these drills we've talked about or none of them and you have your own barrel of things you're into is fine. The only thing I encourage people is, we beat on it all the time. If you have a firearm, you owe it to yourself, you owe it to everybody around you to train and to be capable of using it in a manner that is safe to everyone who is not actively doing stuff they're not supposed to. Let's put it that way. But you also need to train for situations that are the most applicable to the way you carry, the most realistic, the most likely to be needed, and practice that, like I said earlier, practice the stuff that's hard. I am really, really bad at shooting with my offhand double action because I carry CZs. They're double action, single action. It is hilarious to watch me try to draw my CZ from a right-handed holster on my right hip at 3 o'clock with my left hand. It's hilarious looking. I will probably video it at some point or do something and put it on my social media. It looks like a monkey effing a football. But I practice it because it's damn difficult and it's tricky, and like I want to know how to do it just in case, God forbid, I'm ever in that situation. But practice the hard stuff, because if all you ever practice is flat range, shoulder squared up to the target, bullseye shooting, one shot every 3 seconds, like you're a FUD at the range, that is the only thing you're ever going to be good at. And the first time life throws you a curveball, it's going to smack you right between the eyes. So practice the hard stuff, please, for me.
Yeah.
I can tell it's dinner time because Andrew just totally spaced on me.
No, I didn't. I was listening. No, I agree with everything you said. Get out there and train. I just want to throw this out there really quick. Is one fun thing you can do if you if you're by yourself, close your eyes, empty your mag, close your eyes, mix dummy rounds in with live rounds, and load them, and then load your mag up, put it in the gun rack, open your eyes, and then do your drill. Malfunctions, stoppages, that's something that I don't see enough people training in, but it's something that Murphy is going to come bite you in the butt at the wrong time, that you're going to have a stoppage of some kind, whether it's a stovepipe, on your pistol, you need to know how to clear it, or a bullet over bolt stoppage in your AR. And Trek, if you're in Michigan, if you take one of his classes, he has a lot of fun ways of clearing stoppages. It's a ton of fun. So yeah, but research stoppages, research how to get past them, get past just the normal tap rack bang. That only goes so far. If you're with other people at the range, load each other's mags. Have somebody load your mags, throw dummy rounds in. You'll have fun with it. But yeah, that's that. I just want to throw that out there. But no, it's yeah. I got nothing else.
Yep, I don't either. Hour and 20 minutes. We covered like 3 or 4 topics. But it's dinner time, and the 5 or 6 people that are watching this probably have better stuff to do than listen to us ramble for another hour. But please, for the sake of God, start prepping, start training. Be ready to take care of yourselves, guys, because there's people in 2 counties in North Carolina tonight that are going to sleep with the lights off. And if they weren't prepared to deal with life's little bumps in the roads, they're suffering tonight. So don't. It's like the age old thing I always tell everybody: when did Noah start building the ark? Before the rain started. Start today. Matter of fact, podcast heading out the door. Say goodnight.
Good night.